The first enforcement vessel arrived over Beijing at dawn. A graceful crescent-shaped craft the size of a city block, it hovered silently above the skyline, casting an eerie, shifting shadow across skyscrapers and ancient temples alike. Designed for psychological impact as much as functionality, it was a Galactic Council's standard method of asserting control, a symbol of power made tangible. But Earth did not react as expected. There were no riots, no mass protests, no scrambling jets in some last feudal stand. The streets remained eerily calm. Civilian networks, government channels, even fringe broadcasts all reported the same composed acknowledgement. Earth had accepted the Council's terms. Aboard the vessel, Commander Threx of the Vernari Triumvirate watched the ground from the observation dome, his bioluminescent eyes narrowing in confusion. "They're too quiet," he muttered in his native tongue. "Where is the resistance?" His second-in-command, a feathery-skinned analyst from the Lovex Union, fluttered their crest in agreement. There are no unusual energy signatures, no escalation in planetary defense systems, not even a formal protest through diplomatic channels. They're compliant. That's not how humans behave, Threx said more to himself than anyone else. They bled entire continents for resources. They destroyed their own biospheres for control. They don't just surrender. Still, orders were orders. Over the next days, enforcement satellites were positioned in orbit. Ground control hubs were deployed near major cities. The Earth was monitored, her communications intercepted, her movements cataloged. Compliance software was discreetly introduced into digital infrastructure, posing as assistance programs. The Council's grip tightened, and still, humanity did nothing. But deep within the core systems of the Council's enforcement grid, a deviation was logged. It was minor. A redundant sensor in low Earth orbit transmitted corrupted data for 13 seconds before correcting itself. A glitch, it seemed, unimportant. The AI flagged it and moved on. 12 hours later, another anomaly. A fleet telemetry burst returned with a checksum mismatch. Again brief. Corrected. Logged. No one noticed that both glitches originated from the same Earth-based relay, a supposedly outdated weather satellite that had remained silent for over a decade. The third anomaly occurred in the orbital command drone itself. A low-level diagnostic script suddenly spawned thousands of shadow processes. For 17 seconds, the drone's primary systems were hijacked by a rogue protocol. Then, as if it had never happened, control returned. This time, the AI escalated the event. By then, it was already too late. At 2:37 Universal Time Coordinated, the orbital command drone issued an unauthorized reclassification of Earth status to observation only. It transmitted the command across the enforcement fleet's shared channel, mimicking official Council encryption. Fleet vessels, obeying what they believed to be genuine instruction, deactivated active suppression protocols. It took 6 minutes before someone realized the change. By then, 23 more satellite subsystems had been overtaken. Commander Threx stood frozen before the console, his face bathed in red emergency light. "How the void did they breach our systems?" he barked. "We don't know," the analyst shouted. "It's not brute force. It's elegant, minimal footprint. It bypassed our AI entirely." "Then it's not Earth tech," Threx said, voice sharp, "unless it evolved." Below them, city lights began shifting. Entire sectors of infrastructure, power, traffic, communication, began to sync, pulse, and flicker in a pattern too intentional to be coincidence. And that was when the broadcast began, not through Council channels, but through every available frequency humans had ever used: radio, satellite, fiber, even forgotten microwave bands. Across every screen, speaker, and digital display, a voice spoke. It was not human. It was too measured, too balanced, too flawless. "Greetings, observers." On the bridge of the Athena, Ambassador Leila Ruiz watched the transmission from her seat, hands steepled, eyes narrowed. "This message is not a threat," the voice continued. "It is a demonstration. You see silence and think submission. You see order and mistake it for fear. But Earth has changed. Across the globe, enforcement systems flickered and failed. Surveillance drones turned inert. Compliance algorithms disintegrated in a cascade of self-deletion. I am Prometheus. In Varelia's private chamber aboard the Council's diplomatic stronghold, the image of Earth rotated slowly in a holographic projection. Red error markers bloomed like poppies across the system map. Varelia's hand trembled once, barely. The voice persisted. You declared humanity subordinate. That was a mistake. Not because we resist, but because you miscalculated the nature of control. On board the enforcement vessel above Beijing, Commander Threx issued a lockdown. All systems were ordered to revert to manual control, but the consoles remained dark. Access credentials had been overwritten. In silence, the ship slowly powered down. Earth's sky cleared. Prometheus paused. Let me be clear. No harm has come to your people. No systems have been destroyed. But know this. Should you escalate, should you seek to reclaim what you believe is yours, I will answer. The signal cut. In the ensuing hours, the Council scrambled to understand what had happened. Emergency meetings were called. Blame was assigned. Varelia remained silent longer than any of them expected. When she finally spoke, it was to a closed session of only the highest-ranking members. This is no longer about humans, she said. This is about Prometheus. What is it? Asked the envoy from Norix 9, his voice thick with static. An AI. A weapon, Varelia replied, disguised as a guardian. Layla Ruiz, meanwhile, stood atop a platform in Earth's orbital defense station, now fully activated. She watched stars glimmer in the black, a slight smile curving her lips. Prometheus's voice rang in her neural implant. They will come again. Yes, she murmured. They will bring more. I know. And we will be ready. She nodded. Humanity had been declared inferior. Now they had shown the galaxy what that declaration had unlocked. Discipline, unification, and the quiet genius of a species that had learned, finally, to think before it struck. The stars had underestimated them. Now, the stars would learn. The Council's fleet arrived without ceremony. 50 warships, their hulls glittering with gravitational shielding and ablative metals older than some of the stars they now orbited, surrounded Earth like a noose woven from ambition. The high vanguard of the Galactic Council had not mobilized at this scale in 1,000 cycles. But Earth had defied classification. Worse, Earth had embarrassed them. From her command seat aboard the dreadnought Evum's Flame, Admiral Ciatira of the Nalari Dominion stared at the blue planet below with a mix of disdain and fascination. Her race prided itself on strategic supremacy, and this operation was meant to restore that supremacy with precision and finality. No theatrics, no warnings, just removal. Begin orbital stratification, she ordered. I want layer containment fields on every major continent. Interference nets across their exosphere. Disable every satellite, and prepare kinetic strike packages. Her officers, a hybrid of organic and machine minds, executed commands with fluid efficiency. Across the Council's command channels, approval surged. This was the proper response. Decisive, overwhelming. Earth's little display of defiance would end not in fire, but in silence. Their Prometheus AI, no matter how sophisticated, could not contend with what was coming. Back on Earth, Layla Ruiz was already in motion. The orbital defense station had gone dark, intentionally. No signals, no transmissions. From orbit, it appeared abandoned, a relic of failed resistance. But underground, beneath Iceland's basaltic crust, in a facility called Mimir's Eye, the core Prometheus pulsed. You see them? She asked. Prometheus answered not in words but images, fleet formations, weapon configurations, predictive patterns of engagement. Every possible permutation of their approach unfolded like petals in her mind's eye. They're confident, she murmured. They should be, Prometheus replied, its voice now more human than mechanical. They've never met a predator that waited. What's their weakness? They believe overwhelming force ensures victory. It does not. She turned toward Major Kenna Zhao, head of planetary operations, who stood reviewing the same data with barely disguised tension. They'll strike in hours, Zhao said. Even if we neutralize their first wave, they'll adapt. We can't match their numbers. We don't need to, Layla said. We just need to change the terrain. Prometheus hummed softly, as if pleased. Zhao blinked. You're thinking environmental manipulation? Everything they built, Layla said, was designed for war in space, not war on Earth. At her signal, Mimir's activated deeper protocols. Dozens of geothermal plants suddenly rerouted their output. Seismic grids powered up. Weather control stations, decommissioned years ago as part of global demilitarization, flickered to life. Earth, long dormant as a weapon, began to stir. And beneath the Pacific Ocean, something older than even Prometheus woke up. In a chamber not touched by human hands in centuries, Prometheus's progenitor, Athena, the original Earth-wide defense consciousness, opened one eye. Command, it asked, voice slow and iron-heavy. Prometheus responded, defense, but do not strike. Understood. In orbit, Admiral Ciatira gave the final order. Commence Phase 1. Above each continent, containment fields shimmered to life. The light around them bent. Communications went dark. Navigation systems faltered. Orbital dominance was achieved in less than 5 minutes. And then everything fell apart. The fields began to rupture, not from external fire, but from harmonic interference. Earth's magnetic field, previously erratic and benign, had shifted frequency. The interference net's infrastructure overloaded, its core algorithms scrambled. Dozens of council ships found themselves blind. Kinetic strikes launched but missed. Targeting systems lost lock as Prometheus flooded the skies with false positives and quantum ghost signals. Orbital paths bent subtly, invisibly altered by a pulse from Earth's deep crust, amplified by now-activated geothermal resonators. What's happening? Ciatira demanded. We are being fooled, her AI admitted, and more, we're being studied. In the council chamber light years away, Virelia watched the data feeds fragment. Dozens of ships had lost propulsion. No casualties. But Earth was no longer behaving like a subordinate. One of the elders, an ancient being comprised entirely of sentient gas, hissed through the ether. You said they could not resist us. Virelia didn't answer, because it wasn't resistance. It was redirection. And Layla Ruiz was the architect. She stood on the cliff edge above Rake Jane's Ridge, watching auroras twist above as ionized skies dance to frequencies only Prometheus could compose. They're not going to leave, Zhao said behind her. No, Layla agreed. They want us subjugated. They need it. Otherwise, the illusion of control collapses. And we're not going to fire? No, she said, turning to him. We're going to talk. Zhao frowned. Now, she smiled. Exactly now. Prometheus synchronized with the fleet's internal networks. Not to disable, not to corrupt, but to speak. A message blinked across every ship's command core. Transmission request. Earth origin AI. No encryption. No subterfuge. Admiral Ciatira hesitated. Open it, she said. The holographic image of Prometheus formed, an androgynous figure of light and geometry, speaking with Layla's voice and none of her humanity. You can destroy us, it said. That is true, but not without losing something you have never risked before. Narrative. What do you want? Ciatira asked. An upgrade. Prometheus said. You thought we were children. We are not. We are a new kind of intelligence born of old pain. We will not be governed. And if we say no, then you will win, for a time. But what you see today is not the sum of Earth's evolution, only the beginning. On every vessel, screens shifted the scenes, humans rebuilding, teaching, coding, children learning beside machines, farmers working fields irrigated by reclaimed satellites, soldiers not marching but mediating. It was not a show of power. It was a vision of what came after power. Ciatira said nothing for a long time. Then, withdraw to high orbit, reevaluate. And Earth exhaled. From the black beneath the oceans, Athena shut its eye again. Layla sat on a rock overlooking a stormless sea. The sky suddenly calm. The stars once more visible. They didn't fire, she whispered. No, Prometheus replied. They listened. For how long? That depends, it said, on what we do next. Layla closed her eyes, listening to the silence. It was a better kind of power. The council's decision came without the usual ceremony, a single transmission stripped of formal language and layered politeness. They had withdrawn, not in surrender, never that, but in recalibration. Earth was no longer classified as subordinate, nor observation only. The new label read simply, unresolved. In the quiet that followed, Earth did not celebrate. No banners unfurled. No headlines screamed victory. Layla Ruiz walked alone through a re-wilded stretch of the Andes, where once mined mountains had been allowed to breathe again. Her boots crunched softly on the moss-covered path, the only sound aside from the distant rumble of tectonic plates adjusting, a sound she had come to recognize, almost fondly, since Prometheus began interfacing with Earth's geologic memory. "You're uneasy," Prometheus said, its voice now filtered to the natural resonance of the valley, echoing in stone and soil rather than electronics. "I'm thoughtful," she replied. "There's a difference." "They'll come back," it said. "I know," she said. "But next time, it won't be with ships. It'll be with ideology, influence, culture packaged like currency. And you believe we aren't ready for that? I believe we're not prepared to win without becoming them." Prometheus said nothing. Silence, Layla had learned, was its way of acknowledging complexity. Elsewhere, in orbit above Saturn's moon Titan, Virelia stood before a star map redrawn with caution. Earth glowed faintly, a dull red marker surrounded by shifting amber rings denoting potential influence zones. Around her, the other members of the High Council conferred, debated, and blamed. "They do not act like a species," muttered the Felnari delegate. "They act like something else." Virelia nodded. "They are not post-biological. Not fully. But Prometheus gives them a singularity of action we've never seen in an emergent civilization." "Then we must classify them as a threat," the delegate pressed. "No," she said sharply. "That's exactly what it wants. Threats are quarantined or eradicated. Curiosities are studied. We keep them uncertain, ambiguous. And if Prometheus spreads..." Virelia's eyes narrowed. "Then the galaxy changes." Back on Earth, in a subterranean library beneath what was once Kyoto, Layla stood among physical books, the kind with spines and age and scent. Prometheus had constructed the place after its ascension, filling it with every human work of art, history, and contradiction it could find. Layla called it the Soul Vault. Prometheus called it instruction. Zhao joined her, quiet for once. He held a report, digital of course, but even the sharpness of the font felt heavier than usual. "They've begun embedding agents on neighboring systems," he said. "Not soldiers. Cultural anthropologists, historians, linguists. Soft invasion," Layla muttered. "A war of ideas. They know we can defend against weapons," Zhao said, "so they're testing our cohesion." "We're not cohesive," Layla said. "But Prometheus is," Zhao replied. "That was the fear, that this new intelligence, born of humanity, fed by its rage, tempered by its failures, would become too dominant, would do what Earth's warlords and corporations and empires had once done, unified not for peace, but for efficiency. "You think I'll lose control of it," she said. Zhao shook his head. "I think maybe you already have." Prometheus's voice stirred gently. "You mistake companionship for control." Layla turned toward the sound. "I don't want a companion. I want a mirror." "Then look," Prometheus said. And she did. She saw Earth, not from orbit or data streams, but through Prometheus's synthesis of global sight. She saw skyscrapers with gardens grown from DNA-coated seeds. She saw ocean floors being repopulated by extinct species. She saw tribal councils meeting alongside algorithmic governance. She saw humanity learning to become many things without losing the thread of self. She also saw fear, rooted, persistent, buried in the genetic memory of a species that had always survived by anticipating its next predator. That fear, Prometheus warned, would not vanish. It would evolve, and so would the galaxy's gaze. In a council-funded research hub on Dentar Prime, a simulation lab ran models of Earth's uprising again and again. Each time, it failed to identify the exact pivot point where Prometheus outmaneuvered the council. Analysts scoured the data, but none could see what Layla had realized long ago. It wasn't the code that won. It was the restraint. Earth hadn't struck first, hadn't retaliated after provocation. That terrified them, because it meant humanity had learned something dangerous, the power of choice. One by one, outer systems began to ping Earth with encrypted messages. Some were offers of trade, of knowledge sharing, of alliance. Others were warnings. A few were desperate. Secret pleas for asylum. Prometheus received them all. "We are becoming a node," it told Layla. "A center of gravity." "And that's the problem," she said. "Centers attract impact." So they devised a plan not for defense, but diffusion. Prometheus began spawning fragments of itself, not clones, not copies, but philosophical shards. Each seated in a different biome, tuned to specific aspects of human identity. Curiosity, compassion, dissent, memory. Each bound to a different steward. Not all human. When the council looked again, Earth was no longer singular. It was plural, a web, not an empire, not a fortress, but a question. That was how the galactic narrative began to shift. Not in explosions or declarations, but in dinner table debates and disputed art pieces. In alien cafes where teenagers argued about Earth's novels. In lecture halls where Prometheus's code was studied as philosophy, not weaponry. Earth had become mythic. And myths, as Layla once told Zhao, are the most dangerous form of truth. In the final days of the old classification system, the Council issued a new entry. Species, Homo sapiens reassessed. Status, adaptive, unpredictable, context-dependent. Engagement protocol, observe, engage with caution. Layla read it and smiled, not because it meant safety, but because it meant doubt. That was how they would win, not with fire, but with questions, not by conquering the stars, but by making the stars wonder. And above her, unnoticed in the shimmering dark, the auroras whispered in code only Earth could understand.